Welcome back, everyone. I'm Allison Berman. We are at Singularity University's Global Summit. Our next guest is a true web pioneer, philanthropist, and advocate of technology for good. He founded a website in 1995 that's remained so popular that we can hardly imagine life without it today. Please welcome Craig Newmark, the founder of Craigslist and the Craig Newmark Foundation. Craig, welcome.
Hey, I'm really glad to be here.
So let's zoom back to 1995. What was the inspiration behind founding Craigslist?
For a couple of years in San Francisco, people on the net had been helping me with a lot of useful stuff like neighborhood information, that kind of thing. I decided it was time to give back however I could. I started with what I thought were cool art events, technology events, and then it just grew based on suggestions.
And so the site has been very popular for over 20 years. What do you think has created such sustainable success? Because there aren't many platforms that have remained so relevant to today for so many years.
Well, we've always done something very simple, very useful. We don't fall prey to the temptation of over fancy web design.
Yeah.
Sometimes you want to do one thing well and stop.
And that's been the philosophy behind Craigslist?
That's a big chunk of it right there.
And when you started, did you expect so much success?
I had no expectation at all. I started something, I committed to it. I turned it over to a good manager when people pointed out to me that as a manager I suck, but he's kept that philosophy going over 20 years.
And I hear that you're still very involved with the business, that sometimes you even do customer service representative. Is that true?
I have responsibilities in corporate governance, but I've done customer service since the beginning. I'll be doing some customer service only as long as I live. What I do now is just enough customer service to stay real, to hear what people need and want from the site. I listen to people and then make sure the team hears the message.
And when you founded Craigslist, were you already an entrepreneur at the time, or was this your first undertaking?
I've never really been an entrepreneur. During the years, you might say that I was running things. I guess actually only 1 year. I was an accidental entrepreneur. That is, I stumbled onto this by accident. It was a hobby that just went big. And when I realized we needed a real entrepreneur, and that's when I hired someone to be that. And generally speaking, my entrepreneurial stuff, or even my investment, ends in tears.
Ends in tears? What do you mean by that?
Well, I've done some investing, helped out friends with startups. It hasn't worked well.
And so do you identify with being an entrepreneur, or to you has this experience kind of been not what you expected it to be?
It's all been a big surprise. I only identify as a nerd, old school.
An old school nerd. Do you think you would ever create another company, or is this where the interest ends?
I'm not interested in another company like that. I have started a couple of philanthropic entities, which basically operate as one, and that's it.
And so you have a lot of interest and passion in the field of journalism and in integrity in journalism. I'm wondering to you, what does integrity in journalism mean?
It has to do with committing to a code of ethics, like fact-checking, getting it right, don't make stuff up, and if you do get something wrong, which is going to happen, then you fix it. And that's the biggest part of it right there. That's more of a challenge than I'm making it, because there are people who go into fake news in the sense of deceptive news.
Right.
That's a big deal, and I have a feeling the people who do the real stuff are going to be threatened by the people who do the fake stuff.
And so fake news is obviously a huge issue right now, and technology sometimes is really propelling the spreading of fake news. How would you like to see technology stop fake news?
The vision that seems to be emerging is to support networks of fact checkers all across the world, which can help platforms like Facebook or like Google know when a news organization is kind of iffy. Like if they have a record of false news, so they can tell someone, hey, this thing that's about to go into your news feed, they have a bad record for this, so maybe reconsider putting it in. On the other hand, the platforms might say, hey, this article from this other place, they have a really good record of getting it right. We encourage you to put that in there. So that's how the platforms can help. They are not acting as arbiters of truth. The individual fact checkers are not doing that. What they're doing is basing all this on a track record for a news site. They check to see, hey, has this news site gotten it right usually? Or have they gotten it pretty bad? And when they're informed they made a mistake, do they fix it? So no one is an arbiter of truth. It's all based on the track record of an individual site.
And you're involved with the Journalism Integrity Program at CUNY.
Yes.
Can you tell me a bit about that?
That's at the City University of New York Journalism School. They've done great work in journalism, and then they become the host of the News Integrity Initiative, which is the initiative of a bunch of groups, including Facebook, me, and a number of emerging groups that do fact-checking and so on. The intent is to support the good stuff, and then not to attack the bad stuff, but just to let people know, hey, here are the news organizations that try to get it right, and they follow through with a good code of ethics.
And why is having a press that we trust in so important?
Well, around 1970, Mr. Shosky, my high school history teacher, taught us a lot of stuff, like the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, and the principle, as I say it, that a trustworthy press is the immune system of democracy. It makes sure that the country operates right. Last year, the immune system failed.
Yeah.
But journalists know that, and they are going to, I think they're going to do a better job coming up than they've ever done.
Yeah, we hope so.
Well, it's kind of mission critical for the country.
It is, I completely agree. And going back to Craigslist, when you first had the idea for Craigslist, it was not an idea that anyone else had. Were people supportive of it? Did they think, your friends, like, what are you talking about? You're gonna make a site where people sell things?
Well, don't give me too much credit.
Okay.
I had an idea about sharing what I knew about what was going on in town. Other people suggested other stuff.
Okay.
And when it was just me, I did what made sense. When it became a company, together we did things that made sense. So the ideas were kind of done together. And today it's still pretty simple, kind of mundane. Craigslist is a place to help you put food on the table. It helps you get that table, and it helps you put a roof over that table.
And on Craigslist, what's one of the most wild sales you've seen, PG rated?
I haven't seen, the only one I can remember isn't a sale. Once someone put an ad up, he wanted someone else to take the CPA ethics test for him.
Oh.
We've seen
great.
that kind of stuff. Unfortunately, I don't have a memory for that kind of thing, which is also why I don't tell jokes.
That's very funny, though. And so, in the past 20 years of being a web entrepreneur, what are some of the bigger changes that you've seen in how the web functions as a service?
People kind of forget that the web should provide useful services for people, and we kind of forget that a moral principle overriding all is that you should treat people like you want to be treated, and one very practical adjunct to that is provide good customer service. Sometimes people manage to do it, and sometimes people manage the opposite, even at the same site. It's hard to do. Customer service can take a lot out of you, but you want to treat people like you want to be treated.
Definitely. And so Peter Diamandis is here. He talks about the power of technology to democratize material possessions. Do you think that Craigslist plays a part in this, in the sharing and dematerialization or the change of value?
I think so, in the sense that Craigslist is, well, the business model is doing well by doing good.
Yes.
It's about getting something done fast and well. And again, starting with putting food on the table, maybe there's not much more basic than that.
And then going back to your interest in news and the media, how do you think, if we look forward and project in 2030, how do you think people will consume the news at that point?
Well, people are going to probably get recommendations in social media from a combination of friends and maybe news critics that they trust to send them good stuff. And I think most people will opt for trustworthy news. Sometimes we'll opt for a gossip or whatever, because sometimes that can be fun. But I'm hoping that people overwhelmingly avoid the fake stuff, and I think the deceptive news industry, I'm hoping, will wither away.
And if you say that journalists, it's going to be very make or break in the next election. If you had one ask of journalists?
I'm hoping that they basically commit to a code of ethics and follow through, and that code of ethics avoids things like making stuff up or what they call false equivalence. Like if two politicians do something wrong, if one wrong doesn't really matter, if it's a tiny thing, don't equate that to the really bad thing that the other politician did. That was a big problem last year.
It was absolutely a huge problem. And so with your own journey as an entrepreneur, even though you say more you're an old school nerd, what has been something surprising along the way in your journey?
The biggest surprise I found is that people are overwhelmingly good and okay. There are bad people out there. There's not a lot of them, but they are out there. Unfortunately, the press sensationalizes bad stuff sometimes to make a cheap buck, but I think that will end.
Yeah, it's interesting. A theme that has been coming up on this stage is that a lot of things about overemphasis and hype, it seems like that happens a lot with artificial intelligence and to the news to deflect from the meaningful conversations that actually need to happen. So the hype takes us away from what really matters now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in a way, AI refers to different things. There's just increasingly smarter and smarter software where they put in like rules of thumb, heuristics, as opposed to artificial intelligence, which would be like self-awareness. And I, for one, welcome our machine overlords.
You do welcome our machine overlords.
I think it's about time. I'm tired of politics, and machine overlords sounds like they would give us a break.